But before the break caught me, I was talking about the definition of feminism in most people's minds. And many people have different definitions for it. So what I wanted to do is to try to clearly delineate what I am going to be talking about, which is called neo-feminism, or what it's just what I'm calling it, what I'm labeling it. That's what I am choosing to label it. Okay? You could call it socially engineered feminism. All right? You can call it really whatever you want as long as you understand what I mean by it. Okay? So I'm calling this eugenics operation neo-feminism, and I'm delineating that clearly from what I would personally call classical feminism. Classical feminism would be simply women wanting equality under natural law, okay, being treated with fairness. I have no problem with women being paid the same amount for the same job that a man would do, okay? That's not what we're talking about, all right? All right, being treated as an equal when it comes to rights is what I would call classical feminism. And I have no issue with that at all. Neo-feminism is something altogether different, and we're going to be getting into what it entails. Okay? So it's like we would delineate between classical conservatism or classical liberalism versus what we have in the world in the form of neoconservatism, conservatism and neoliberalism. The neocons, the neolibs. Okay? Well, this is those divides are just as large as the divide between what I would term classical feminism and neo-feminism. I would say this divide between the two forms of feminism we're talking about is even bigger. Okay? They're worlds apart. Absolute worlds apart. So, what the neo-feminist agenda has done is it has sparked off a war between men and women in society. It has created androgyny within our society to a large extent, and it has led to the direct manipulation of both the female mind and the male mind. It has wed women to the state in a very big way. It has destroyed the moral fabric of our society. It has destroyed the value system of our society. It has largely put people toward a value system of only thinking that money is of any actual value. It has destroyed the familial dynamic, the family dynamic, the familial dynamic, whatever you want to call, however you want to word it. It has demolished education. It has demolished true parenting. You know, we didn't even have great parenting as it was, but it was better before this agenda even came in, and it has destroyed it all the more. It has led to the enormous rise in moral relativism in our society. And let me tell you something, folks. The neo-feminist agenda has come directly out of Satanism. Directly from the dark occult and Satanism. If people do not think that this is a satanic agenda, they're fooling themselves. They're kidding themselves. I'm telling you directly from working with the Satanists. Not only did they say that they were going to be waging ideological warfare against the public through putting out all kinds of nonsense spirituality, pseudo-spiritual belief systems that were going to be wrapped under the banner of the New Age movement, because they own these publishing houses that put out all that work. They also said, we are going to foment, through androgyny, an upcoming war between men and women, the war between the sexes, that isn't going to be a shooting war, it's going to be an ideological war that's going to pressure and press society in certain ways that they're going to become more easily manipulatable. And they've done it. They've done a masterful job of it, because when these occultists say that they are going to do something, they follow through with their will, and they get it done, because they're on the same page. They are united in dark care. as I've talked about many times. They care about getting their agenda in place, and they actually put their will behind it, they put their mind behind it, and then they get it done. Unlike us, who sit there debating on whether this person who we're going to sit and listen to instead of actually become involved in doing something in the world and helping to change other people's minds is genuine or not, or whether he's a shill, or whether, because he runs some advertising, he's owned by corporate overlord masters, or whether because I have a couple of skulls in a case in my work area here by my computer to remind me what should I be spending my time doing, because the time of life that we have to spend is limited, and the skull simply acts as a reminder that you are mortal and you will pass from this mortal world at some point. So, when I feel like getting up from this computer, doing the work that I know I need to be doing, I take a glance over there and I say, maybe I need to get back to work, because I've given up my life to actually do the great work instead of the complete idiots that are out there looking to somebody else to do their work for them and saying, oh, he might be a shill because he doesn't talk about this and that. Just shut up, morons, because you're the shills. That's what it really is. You are the shills if that's what you do. Okay? You don't have to be paid by anybody. You're just a useful idiot dupe that doesn't understand what the great work is because you're not doing it. You're not doing it. And people want to make stupid asinine comments about, oh, he's wearing some kind of a satanic emblem. It's called the seed of life, dunce. It's sacred geometry that represents the generative principles of creation. In other words, how we actually create reality through what we believe and then put into effect through our actions. What we've accepted into our minds. I shouldn't even use the word belief, through what we know, through the knowledge we've come to understand. But, again, it just betrays people's worldview. And, this is a big part of the reaction to the neo-feminist agenda that I'm going to get into. A lot of people have seen how manipulatable women have become in society. They've seen that, their value systems have just plummeted into an abyss. And then they want to react by thinking that that's just the nature of women. Oh, just women are just evil, And that there goes the poison worldview, Oh, this is just the nature of people. And they never want to talk about social engineering. They never want to talk about the wider societal engineering through mind control that's going on in this culture. We're talking about in the unfolding of the explanation of how this neo-feminist agenda works, what it is, and how it has really driven a wedge in society between men and women. A lot of people will react and say, well, this is women's nature. You'll hear this a ton in people who are discussing this. And I would say that this is a complete lack of understanding. This is absolutely incorrect, wrong, reactionary, and immature and naive. And it shows how little some people have actually studied the causal factors of what's going on. They have very little historical knowledge. They're just reacting from a visceral point of view. And there's nothing wrong with, getting angry. There's nothing wrong with being vitriolic about what's going on. But get your grammar right first, and understand causal factors first, before just spitting vitriol out there and you don't even have knowledge to back it up. That's a belief system, this whole thing about human nature. Soon as I hear someone use the words human nature, I become immediately suspect of their knowledge level. Let's put it that way. Soon as I hear somebody say, that's human nature, almost immediately I start thinking of them like, here's a person who hasn't done their homework fully. They might have bits and pieces of the picture, but they haven't figured out what human nature really is. Because if they did, they'd never blame behavior to human nature. Behavior is largely socially engineered. except for the few people who have come out of the mind control of that social engineering. And their behavior is not owned and directed by that manipulation. The vast majority of the human species mind is, however. And I would make the argument that many, many more of a percentage of women's mind is still in that dialectical manipulation. And I would say the young women of our society are taking all the more. And it's becoming more and more blatant and apparent to anyone who's paying even a modicum of attention. And again, many people will be offended by these statements. I don't care. I'm not interested in whether you're offended or not. I'm interested in telling the truth about what's going on as I understand it. And I do understand it very well, ladies and gentlemen. You can get as offended about that as you like. I understand it from a perspective that most people will never experience in their lives, from the people who are actually putting this into effect. So you can ignore my words and think that you understand what's going on, and that's fine. I don't tell anybody they have to accept what I'm saying. But I'm going to speak it, and no one's going to stop me from speaking it short and to put a bullet in me. And like I said before, that won't even get it done. Because you think I haven't vowed to come back here until slavery's ended on this world? Then you really don't know who I am then. Trust me, nothing's stopping me. Because I have a will that isn't owned by any earthly intent or any earthly, faculties. It is preternatural. It is directed by the Creator. It's not directed by any three-dimensional elements. So good luck trying to defeat that. That's what directs my will. And believe me, every day is a battle to crawl out of the bed in this dark world. Surrounded by total sickness and ignorance everywhere you turn and look. And I'll continue to do it anyway. Because you're dealing with a will that is not of this planet. And that's what other people have to develop and allow to guide them. Most of them aren't there yet because they're too afraid to die. And they want to be comfortable. They're too worried about what other people think of them. They're too worried about their creature comforts. You got to be willing to give it all up. You want to make any change happen in this world. So the fundamental problem that I think people have to look at first when looking at this dynamic of the mind control of women is to recognize, I'm putting this out there day one, okay? This is not the nature of people that we're seeing, folks. If you believe that, you're part of the problem. You've bought into the poison worldview that the Satanists and dark occultists and mind controllers and social engineers want you to believe in. Because you're not doing anything to heal that dynamic if that's just what you think. That's just like saying, oh, they're just all primarily psychopathic. Absolutely not the case. They're dealing with unimaginable amounts of programming that have been specifically directed at them since the minute of their birth. Now, does that absolve somebody from the bad behaviors that they're conducting? No. I'm not an apologist for humanity being so spiritually weak that they've accepted all forms of mind control. I said that from day one of this radio show, that I am not, nor will I ever be, an apologist for humanity's bad behavior. It's an influence. You still have free will. It all begins and ends with a choice. You're putting the effects of natural law into place. Consequences don't just happen. They are caused. The underlying causes is what we think that leads to our behavior in the world. Then natural law works upon that and brings us the consequences of those actions. And people still don't understand how that simple dynamic of consequentialism or natural law works. They still have a problem understanding it. They can't understand it because of the language. They think natural means the Darwinian natural order. Well, think of it as spiritual law then. Then they have a problem with that because half of these morons are atheists, and they're stuck in the scientism religion. They don't want to understand there's a higher power that's directing what happens based upon the behavioral decisions you make, and you're not in control of those consequences. You're in control of the choices. That's what free will is. That was the gift the Creator gave all the beings, the beings with the capacity for holistic intelligence in this universe. And you know what we're doing with it? We're totally squandering it and stepping on it, and spitting on it and throwing it on the ground and trampling it. That's what we're doing with free will. Because we want to give over our personal responsibility to somebody else to do our thinking for us. We want to do what's comfortable instead of what's right. Because most people have become garbage. That's not our nature, but that's what we've chosen to become. Just like the manipulated mindset that the vast majority of women in our culture are in isn't their nature. It's what they've chosen in the level of spiritual weakness that they've been raised in. And men are this very same way. I'm not absolving them by any stretch of the imagination. And they fall for tons of manipulation. And, one of the things I want to say, besides helping people to understand, this isn't the nature of the female. It's not human nature. It's mind control. It's social engineering. It's the current conditions that have come about as a result of the social engineering that's been done to humanity. They've made this like our nature. That's why so few people can understand that this perpetuation of these social engineering dynamics through countless generations has slowly worked our nature to be like this. It doesn't mean it can't change. What's really inherent to nature isn't changeable. That's why I don't want to call it human nature. It's the current human condition. There's a difference between the current condition and human nature. We've talked about that, and I've talked about it in my natural law seminar as well. I recommend people go back and check out my explanation of that with slides there. It's a fact of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, an absolute fact of the matter that most of the order followers, who are in fact the creators of the Dark New World Order, the creators of the slavery system here on earth, are men. The vast overwhelming majority. And here's another thing that you're going to hear a lot of in this series over the next many weeks. And once again, get as offended about this as you like. Cry in your milk, beat your fists against the desk, bang your head against the wall. I don't care. I am going to use and make generalizations. In the explanations that I intend to help people to understand, generalizations must be used. If you can't handle the concept of most, or almost every, or the overwhelming majority, shut the show off right now.